Contrary to popular belief, and I must correct a lot of people who think this is a Canadian movie, it was made by a Canadian and featured a strong Canadian actor in the lead, but Nightwing was never a Canadian movie. This American horror film came out in '79, again directed by Arthur Hiller. The screenplay was written by Martin Cruz Smith, Steve Shagan, and Bud Shark, based on the '77 novel of the same title by Smith. The movie tagline is "Day belongs to man, but night is theirs." It was one of many imitators of the 1975 film Jaws. Such movies about animals gone wild were popular in the late 70s and early 80s, including grizzly, orca, tentacles, the pack, piranha, alligator, and great white. Some of these we will be covering on the channel in the coming days. Now, in the movie, young man Duran, a deputy on the Opie Indian Reservation, New Mexico, investigates a series of mysterious cattle mutilations. Abner Dusopi, an ancient and better medicine man who raised young men after his parents died, reveals that he has woven a spell to end the world that very night. However, Youngman assumes Dusopi is simply babbling while under the influence of the datura root. The following morning, Youngman finds Abner's bloodless body on the floor of his shack and nearby discovers a dead shepherd and most of his flock. Now, Tribal Council Chairman Walker Chi has discovered a stratum of oil shales in Mesquite Canyon, the most sacred ground in the tribe's domain. Walker is dynamiting the caves in an effort to unleash oil and is planning to sell the rights to process them to Tycoon Roger Piggott of Peabody Oil. Walker is desperate to keep word of the attacks from leaking to the media before he completes the deal. Although common sense tells him otherwise, Youngman's faith in tribal beliefs and superstitions leads him to suspect the unexplained deaths may be connected to Abner's spell. British scientist Philip Payne is certain that they are the work of vampire bats infected with bubonic plague. As bats spread throughout the area, swarming through a missionary group's campsite and infecting everyone in their path, Philip and Youngman join forces with Ann Dillon, a young white medical student who runs a ramshackle clinic on the reservation and is in love with Youngman. He tracked the bats through the lair and eventually destroyed them. Now, sounds good on paper, but it was a slow-moving movie. Now, Nick Mancuso, our great Canadian actor, was the lead as Youngman Duran. David Warner, our great British actor Philip Payne. Catherine Harrell as Ann Dillon. Stephen Mock as Walker Chi. Ben Piazza as Roger Piggott. Strother Martin as Selwyn. Donald Houghton as John Franklin. Charles Hallahan as Henry. And George Clutzy as Abner Dusupi. Now, again, a good cast. Hiller directed. Produced by Martin Ramshawoff. Cinematography, Charles Roger Jr., edited by John Howard, music by the great Henry Mancini, distributed by Columbia with a budget of $5.5 million, 105 minutes. Now, this was Hiller's only horror movie. The film was shot on location in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and Coolboro, New Mexico. The soundtrack includes Lucille by Kenny Rogers and Don't Make My Brown Eyes Blue by Crystal Gale. The bats were the creation of special effects artist Carlo Rambaldi, who previously had worked on King Kong and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, when it was first released in '79, the movie failed both critically and financially. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called the film not very horrifying and thought it looks as though it had been put together from a child's instruction book. Now, it won no platitudes positively, and Channel 4 once said, quite why Hiller was selected to direct the suspense shockers, the most interesting thing of the project. A filmmaker was made especially of showing reverence for platitudes has no jurisdiction over a piece of schlock nonsense about bat killers in the Arizona desert. It won Worst Picture at the 79 Stickers. When the expansion project redid the ballot in 2004, the film was listed with the following: Lead Special Effects, Worst Picture, Worst Director for Hiller, dishonorable mention, Worst Supporting Actor for Martin, dishonorable mention, Worst Screenplay, dishonorable mention, Worst Non-Human for the Killer Bats, dishonorable mention. Now, in recent years, Nightwing has acquired a growing cult of devoted admirers. In 2008, for example, author Lee Gammon praised the film as extremely well-paced and great fun. Author John Capps notes the eerie tone of the film's musical score by Mancini, observes that Mancini actually instructed musicians to detune their instruments a quarter tone downward when scoring the movie's nocturnal scenes. Quentin Tarantino once wrote about Nightwing, and bugs me more, partly because I feel the movie wants it to be Abner's curse. It just doesn't have the balls to admit to it. Released on Blu-ray in 2018, all I can say is that thanks for listening to this interesting podcast on Nightwing.